What's the word, guys and goddesses? Today I wanted to talk about Debbie Gallagher from Shameless, and I wanted to talk about the fact that I don't think her character was actually ruined like a lot of people say. And the reason I don't think her character was ruined by bad writing is because I feel like her writing was more so realistic. A lot of the times, those kids that are really gifted early on tend to burn out because they have a lot of pressure put on them early from things they just should not be dealing with. And that's exactly what Debbie went through in the beginning, from running a daycare, dealing with Liam when she had no business doing that at that age. So if you ask me personally, I think rather realistically, if you ask me, simply because, like I said, kids that are gifted early on and given burdens that they should not have end up exactly like Debbie. And even if you want to say, oh, that's not the bad writing we're talking about. The assault of that boy, I forgot his name. Yes, it was very wrong what she did, but from her point of view, it makes sense that she would do something like that because Frank got assaulted in the show, and it was kind of just swept under the rug. Also, it doesn't help the fact that Frank was assaulted by a woman, so it was doubly swept under the rug. Because it's kind of seen as like, oh, it can't really be wrong because he's a man. But that's part of the reason why Debbie thought something like that would be okay. It's because that's how she grew up, in a house where something like that just kind of gets swept under the rug. And then even if it doesn't, even when it's consensual around the house, it's constantly around the house. And she was never taught properly. Oh God, I know this video is really about Debbie, but it's not really limited to just her, because also Ian and Lip went through the same thing as far as quote unquote wasting their potential and not being who they could have been, so to speak. I guess these things are annoying, but yeah, Debbie and Ian went through the same thing, man. As far as it goes with wasted potential, Ian was supposed to be in the military, but what happened to him? He got the short end of the stick. All right, and he ended up becoming manic like Monica. Lip ended up falling into alcoholism, just like Frank. They're literally all wasted potential. Oh gosh. But for some reason, Debbie's the only one that's ever really talked about and forgiven for quote unquote bad writing. But a lot of people don't seem to give Ian and Lip that same flack for some reason when it comes to quote unquote bad writing. Literally all the Gallagher kids are wasted potential, and it's iterated in the beginning of the show that they're all at least on track to be somebody better than what the family's limited to. I'm pretty sure like Lip was obviously supposed to be the smart one. He had a whole character arc where he was upset about being a meal ticket because he's so smart. He's the one that's supposed to go to college. All of those kids were considered to have potential. So I don't understand why Debbie is the only one that gets grace for bad writing. I just don't get that. Because if that's the case, aren't all the Gallagher kids written poorly except Fiona and I guess Liam? But I guess that begs the question, what are you considering bad writing for Debbie? Because like I said, if you want to say the assault, that kind of fits into her household and what she grew up around and what she was presented with is okay. And then her being a bad mother, because she has some moments with Franny where she's just extremely questionable. Those moments, those check out for character development as well, because that's something Monica would do. The constant abandonment, putting relationships over her kid. She literally has the carbon copy blueprint of Monica. She went from having a kid way too early, despite what everybody's telling her. Frank is the only one saying keep the baby, and everybody's like, yo, that should be your sign. She still does not listen, and that's very in tune with something her mother would do. And then like I said, she's pretty much the carbon copy of her mom when it comes to the children aspect of things. Also, she ends up having children and then ends up leaving them not leaving them, but she starts prioritizing her relationships over her child. She does it with Franny. She tries to force David into a relationship, which is what caused the birth of Franny in the first place. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that checks out because I'm pretty sure Monica trapped Hank, if I'm not mistaken. So once again, I don't think that's bad writing. I think that's real. She's just doing what her mother would. So I don't really think that's bad writing. I just think, people need to accept that sometimes you're just not gonna like the writing decisions. I truly don't think her writing was bad. I think it was just realistic, and a lot of people just don't like that. Everybody thinks a happy ending is what you should get. Everybody thinks everything should just be happily ever after. And it's like, no, that's not how it works out all the time. Sometimes people crash and burn. Sometimes people become bad people. That's just how it goes. Like, a lot of people feel like she changed and became a bad person. But no, she's just like her mom. She's Monica. Monica was a shit mother. She was a bad person. She put relationships over her kids. She trapped people into relationships. She never held on to stable ones. She set horrible messages for her children. And that's all stuff that Debbie does. It all came from Monica. And that's real life. Sometimes people take directly after their fucking parents, whether they're shitty traits or not. And I think Debbie just fell victim to that in the show. And if you really think about it, all of the three Gallagher kids, like the main ones, Ian, Lip, and Debbie, I'm pretty sure they all went through relatively the same type of things, just in different order. Lip ended up getting taken advantage of by that professor. So that's not getting assaulted, but that's kind of what I'm aligning with Debbie's assault of the boy. They've all dealt with like some type of sexual abuse, one way or the other. Ian dealt with his very early on with the shop owner. That's something that I feel like people really fucking forget or neglect to mention. That boy was being raped early on in seasons 1 and 2, if I'm not mistaken. So they all have dealt with sexual deviancy or predatory nature at one point or another. I would say they all had a pregnancy scare, or not pregnancy scare, but had children, because we know Lip ended up with the kid as well. Obviously Debbie, Ian's gay, so he can't have kids, but he had this whole little arc where he was kind of like a parent to to all those homeless queer children, however you want to go about it. And honestly, I really don't have too much to say on this, honestly. Like, I feel like I'm kind of repeating myself. I don't feel like Debbie was bad writing. I just feel like it made sense for who she was and where she grew up in, or what she grew up in. Bad mother that she took up after, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to I'm talking about relationships and habits, because she ended up having a kid just like Monica did. Then she ended up leaving that man, that man left her. Then she ended up dealing with women for some reason. And then on top of that, Debbie ended up dealing with multiple women. She dealt with a mom, and then ended up dealing with the mom's daughter as well. Like, Debbie did become a very shitty person. Don't get me wrong, but it's realistic that she became that type of person. Look where she grew up at. Look what she grew up around. Frank was her fucking father. It makes sense from a realistic standpoint. I don't see how people can complain about that, if I'm being 100% honest. Like, I feel like saying Debbie has bad writing is saying, oh yeah, genetics just don't exist in this universe and should be ignored. You know what I mean? Like, she's just like Monica. I mean, a carbon copy. She's just not manic like Ian is. Ian got that end of it. But as far as motherly traits and habits as a person, yeah, just like Monica. Puts her relationships over the well-being of her child most of the time. Can't keep stable relationships. She was also a thief at one point. Let's not forget that. She was stealing strollers at the park. Now, you tell me that doesn't sound like a Frank trait, like to just steal people's property for his own benefit without any regard for them whatsoever. You're telling me that's not realistic writing? You're telling me that's not accurate, or you just didn't like it? And that's where I feel like the problem comes in. A lot of people need to accept that you're just not gonna like the writing all the time, but sometimes, bro, it's as real as it gets. And I feel like the sooner that's accepted, the more people can enjoy television a bit more. But I'm gonna be honest, this is gonna be a quick video. Nothing too much to talk about here. I just don't think people want to accept the fact that Debbie was written well from a realism standpoint. She just became so unlikable and so off track from what she was in the beginning that people just can't accept that she turned out to be a piece of shit, because that's what she grew up around. It makes sense. It's quite accurate if you ask me. But, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed. And remember, refuse to be regular.